our learning objective right now is you guys will create, solve, and evaluate rational equations produced on paper, which means you're gonna write it out. You're demonstrating the sequence of steps necessary to answer a real-world problem. I've handed out the steps already, we've talked about them. What you're going to be doing is answering these questions. What variable or variables is needed to define the problem? Why is a ratio needed in this problem? And how do you know another team's solution is correct? So after you've worked through some yourself, you'll trade papers with the other team and you'll check each other's work and see if they've done it correct, whether or not you agree with their answer, because you could have done the steps correctly but not come up with the same answer. And you're gonna comment or annotate their paper to make sure that you can share your comments with them. So by the end of class today, the product that you're gonna turn in for your exit ticket is that you will have written the steps needed to solve the problem, we'll write them on the back of your papers, and identified the variables needed to find the solution. Now again, my vocabulary words are in orange, just like before. Someone tell me what a variable is.
The letter.
It's the letters, that's right. So it's a quantity or number that can change. We don't know what it is or how much it is, so we represent it usually by a letter. So in this equation here, 2x plus 6 equals 0, then the variable is the orange x. We don't know how much it is, it can change. The solution then is what?
The answer.
The answer.
The answer, absolutely. So it's any and all values of the variables, because sometimes when we, and our polynomials, when we have them in our, set to 0, we have more than one answer for the value of x. So it's any and all variables, values of variables that can satisfy or solve the equation. So this is our variable, and here, -3 is our solution when we solve the problem. Any questions on this part?
No.
So what is it that we're gonna do, turn in by the end of class?
Already some.
Yes. Yes, you have written the steps, and what are you identifying?
The variables.
Variables,
To find a solution.
needed to find the solution. Are we solving it yet?
No.
No, we're just gonna make sure we understand the steps needed, the variables that we're pulling out of the word problem that will help us find the answer or solution. Any questions? Okay. Alright, so we talked about a ratio being a relationship between two numbers, and we usually write it as a fraction. The biggest example that I can show you that most kids know is grades. So if I tell you that we have, you got 12 correct out of 20 possible points, what is your grade? Do you have your calculator? Doesn't work. Something's wrong with it. Okay, so if we divide 12 by 20, thank you, that gives us 0.6. But to change a decimal to a percentage, we have to multiply times what? 100, right, good. So if we multiply that times 100, that actually makes it 60%. That's how we change it to a percentage. We do the same thing when we talk about other numbers. We put one on top of the other. This is how many correct out of how many possible. Those two numbers are related to each other, so they are expressed as a ratio. We're gonna do the same thing as we look at number 1. Number 1 on our sheet says, a basketball team's record so far this season is 42 wins out of 78 total games played. So how would we write our numbers up here?
278.
Absolutely, 42 over 78. How do you know to do it that way? Why wouldn't it be 78 over 42?
Because you did that, you get an even more complicated decimal answer.
It would be a more complicated decimal answer, absolutely. Just like we did here, this is the total number possible, this is the number we got. This is the number they got, or how many they won, out of the total played. So you usually put the total possible ones on the bottom, and the ones that we're looking for on the top. We could have put the number they missed up there, right? We could have put different numbers that we wanted to compare against the total, but the whole total goes on the bottom. Does that make sense? Okay, so how many games what percent of their games have they won then? If we solve this the same way we did that,
60%.
well, divide it and see what you come up with.
0.5, 0.53.
42 divided by the 78 is what?
0.53.
0.53, I'm sorry. If I want that to be a percentage, what do I do?
You round the decimal over 2 places.
Move the decimal over 2 places, absolutely, and we did that because we're multiplying times 100, and that's actually 53%. Our question, though, is asking us, the question is, how many more games must the team win in a row to reach a 60% winning record for the season? Well, if we wanna know how many more games, what math operation are we doing? Is that adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing?
Multiply.
How many more games?
Oh, I don't know then.
What does more mean?
Add.
Right. That's what we learned that before, that adding means we're gonna put more to it. Right now, they've won 42 wins, and we wanna know how many more. Do we know what that number is?
Mm-mm.
So what can we put in there?
X.
An X. Why did you choose X?
I don't know.
What is X?
You don't know how many more games you have to win.
Perfect, absolutely, we don't know that number yet. Oh. Okay, so we've got a couple of things on our desk now. We have the instructions that we're gonna follow on steps to solving rational equations. We're gonna be using those in your partner groups. We also have your example sheets that we're gonna be going over and practicing pulling the variables out, how to read them. And then for your independent work, you're going to be using the problem strips. And you're gonna fill the graphic organizers out with these. So as I go through the examples with you, I'll show you how to use the graphic organizer for your problem strips. I have each of the graphic organizers, we're gonna fill them out together, and there's a front and a back to them. So the front will be like this, we'll have the example that we're gonna fill in together, and then you and your partner will work one problem. When we're done with one problem, we're gonna change papers, and we're going to critique our other person. We're gonna answer some questions about what they did, whether or not you agree with their answer, and why. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the sweatshirt costs $15 each plus a one-time fee of $230 for silk screening and delivery. How many sweatshirts does this class need to sell in order to get their average cost per sweatshirt to be $20? So I guess what we know is, the shirts are gonna cost $15 each plus a one-time fee of $230, and we need them to equal 20. You figure we need to form an equation to do that.
Yes, but we have $36. But we don't have any available for the shirts, so that has to be our X.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, so we need to find we need to know the average cost, and we need to take the total. Not the total. Okay, so we need to find the average cost, and we need to take the total cost and divide it by the number of shirts. What do you think?
I agree.
Basketball team's record so far this season is 42 wins out of 78 total games played. How many more games must the team win in a row to reach a 60% winning record for the season?
Perfect. Before we think about our unknown, what do we know? What information do they give us that we know?
That basketball team's record so far this season is 42 wins out of 78 total games played.
Yep. So, no, what were we gonna say? That's right.
I was going to say what he said.
Okay, so our knowns are that we have wins and we have total games, right? Okay, how many wins do we have?
42.
42, and how many total games have we played?
78.
78, okay? So remember the other day, we said it's kinda like when we check your grades, when we said that if you had, I think the example I gave you is if we have 12 questions correct out of 20, we could calculate our grade, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this being a ratio or a relationship between two numbers that we write as a fraction, so we can compare them. What's the next part of that question ask us though?
How many more games must the team win in a row to reach a 60% winning record for the season?
Yes, how many more games do they need to win? Do we know how many they are?
Nope.
So what, do you think that could go into our graphic organizer somewhere?
Yeah.
Where? Would it be an unknown variable? Would it be the equation or would it be the solution?
It would be the solution, no.
No, the unknown.
It is, we don't know how many more games, we need to find out, right?
Yeah.
So our unknown variable is